weird. I have a couch today. This is not normal. Also, I have no table, so my tea is on the floor. It is not normal for me to have a couch in this room. This couch usually lives in a different room, but we got some new furniture in that room, and in the process of cleaning for the new furniture, this couch got moved and it hasn't yet gone back, although it will. So I'm taking advantage of it being here. Hello, welcome to the April yarn wrap-up video. Hopefully I will slowly sneak these closer to the beginning of the following month, because I feel like we're slightly better than last month, but I'm still like a week and a half to 2 weeks into the month before this will get recorded, edited, posted, all of the things. So I wonder if the light in here would help. Undetermined. Whatever. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to do the best I can at talking. My lungs are on the struggle bus. Had a respiratory reaction a day and a half ago, and it usually takes me somewhere between 24 and 48 hours to like feel normal. And the 24 hours was definitely not enough to feel normal again. So we are having some tea and gonna take this as slow as I need to. Okay, so it should be easier than last time because I don't have 2 whole months of knitting to talk about, because I actually, got around to making a video. So in April, I had finished 2 objects, which I'm very excited about because that was the number of objects I wanted to finish. I also did finish a sock out of a pair of socks. And then some very not good things transpired with the pattern designer whose pattern I had used to make that sock. And it was really in a place where I was like, I don't feel good about continuing this project right now. And I don't really know what I want to do. So I put that pair of socks on hold. I am going to go back and finish the pair of socks. I had already bought the pattern. Finishing knitting this project does not give the pattern designer any more money. Apologies have been issued. So we're just sort of going to see if future actions and future words line up with the apology, rather than what went down. There's plenty of information about this on the internet. You can find out if you want. I don't want to talk about the details, because plenty of people have done and know more about it and are wiser than I. But in any case, I will finish those socks, but we gave me some space from the project and the feelings that situation was bringing up for me. So instead, we sort of had 2.5 finished projects in April, but I'm not going to talk about the socks in depth or show them for now. So what I did finish is my Adriata by Jojo Locatelli. I really hope I said that right. I'm sorry, that designer's name stresses me out because I've rarely heard it out loud. I've only seen it in print and I don't know that I'm saying it correctly. Anyway, this is knit out of Through the Wardrobe Yarn Co. Narnia in Winter colors from her 2024 Advent Back Through the Wardrobe. And that is a total of 6 colors. So I faded them from the top. Well, they are a fade. They fade into each other. But I held them double because Adriata is a DK weight tank top with a skein of Pensive Porcelain from Golden Hour Knitwear. And obviously I still need to weave in the ends and do the finishing and the blocking. But I'm very excited to have this done. This is my first tank top knit, which, as someone who I'm not even sure anymore how you would describe my feeling about sleeves, but I am largely anti-sleeve for warm weather wear. So it's strange that this is the first time I have done a knit without sleeves, but here we are. I am using the leftovers of all of these Narnia colors in another project. So the 100-gram skein of Pensive Porcelain was enough to basically get me to the bottom ribbing. I don't tend to do things as cropped as a lot of patterns are written because I am not a high-waisted curly, I'm a low-rise. So I don't want as much midriff as a crop for something that's written for a high-rise with the bottoms that I wear. That's just my personal preference and what makes me the most comfortable. So it is longer than some people might knit it. But by the time I got to the ribbing, I didn't have enough Pensive Porcelain to do the ribbing. Thankfully, I had a DK Mini in a comparable color of like white cream, because this is a warmer whitey cream color, and we made that work for the bottom ribbing, and we basically used up all of that. So this probably about 220 grams of yarn in here. So I can subtract that from my yarn stash in my planner. That is one finished object. The other thing that I finished in April is, oh, that was a tail. The Pavo blouse by Atelier Anjou. And this is in Dying Wishes Yarn Co. A Trap for Heffalumps color, also from a 2024 Advent. Sarah did sock sets, and I had 2 skeins of A Trap for Heffalumps. One technically from the Advent, one was the subsequent pre-order, and I think once I block this, like the lace will show up a lot better, because it's like a peacock feather kind of design lace around the neckline, in the yoke, around the bottoms of the sleeves, and at the bottom before the hem ribbing. So I'm very excited about this. I need to weave the ends in so it can go on vacation with me if it's not too hot. But yeah, this is only, I think, oh, Adriata is not the first sleeveless thing I've ever knit. I forgot about my Hobbiton vest. Oops. I have knit a vest, but it has like a faux placket, so it's a pullover vest. Adriata still counts as the first tank top. But I'm sorry, dear, I have knit something with no sleeves. Anyway, second no sleeve garment, and this is, I believe, my second t-shirt kind of knit. Also used up most of both skeins of yarn. So those are my finished objects. Time for tea. All right. Things I started or that were ongoing in April and I'm bringing with me into May. My anthology throw in the Dymad Yarns tarot colorways, and I have gotten further on this now. It is, I have put it on a 60-inch like circular needle, but it's still not big enough for you to like get the full effect. But we are on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th color out of 24, and we are rapidly approaching the end of that color, so that's about the 25% mark. So that's encouraging because this wasn't part of the knitting plan for this year, it got added. But I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited to add the next color. Will say the pattern has kind of like uneven stripes once you get to this point. I'm at the point where I have 576 stitches on the needles. And this colorway that I'm knitting right now, you're supposed to do like 11 rows. And there's not enough yarn in a 20-gram mini to do 11 rows of 576 stitches. So that's not gonna happen. But like the next couple of colors are like 5 rows or 8 rows. And I'm like, why didn't we divide this up a little more evenly amongst the colors? I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna get what we get out of this mini, and then we're gonna move on and we're gonna make up for those rows in another color. That's the way it goes. Because that is not going another 3 rows, I promise you that. I have played some tight games of Yarn Chicken, but that one I'm not playing. Okay, new cast-ons for May. Okay. Probably. That's like one of the least impressive ones, so we'll talk about it. Ooh, and it has my Highland cows on it, so that's exciting. All right. I have one. Is that the... Yes, I did magically show you the right side, not the wrong side. I have one 20-row lace repeat done for the filigree cami. In my size, I have to do 7 full lace repeats per side, so I have to do that twice. Today's a Monday. I was hoping to have both of those lace pieces done by the end of this week. But when I first cast it on, I got a bit in a rush. And most of the stitches in the lace are things that I know how to do. But there are a couple ones that I haven't done before, like a triple slip knit. I've done slip knit, but not slip knit. And I just sort of like extrapolated that I knew how to do it. And there was a couple other stitches, and there's so much twisting in this lace that to go backwards is mind-bending. And I had done about 8 rows, and I was like, I'm convinced that I have twisted something the wrong way at some point. And trying to undo it and fix it seems like less of a headache than ripping the whole thing out and starting again. So I did that. I just frogged the whole thing. I recast it on. I watched the YouTube videos. I read the pattern designer's tips, and then I knit it. And really it didn't take terribly long to get 20 rows. So hopefully we can get those lace bits done. And then the rest of the tank top, oh, it's a camisole. The rest of the camisole will be its own adventure. It is in Woolberry berry linen in the color Longbourn from her Pride and Prejudice collection. And then I am using the same yarn in a different colorway to make a Will-O-Wisp tank top by Woolen Pine. And this is, I believe this is the colorway. Bother. I'm going to have to look it up. I think this is I Love You Most Ardently. Yes. So I have the fronts and the straps done, and I've joined it in the round, and in the back you do a little bit of like ribbing after you've done the I-cord cast on for the back. So I've done the ribbing part, and I am currently knitting stockinette until the chest is covered, and then there's lace. So we are working on this. I think this one is possibly a good candidate to go on vacation with us. Both of these I would like to have done by the end of this month. We will see though, because we actually did decide we're going on vacation, and I will do some knitting probably, but not likely not as much knitting as I do at home. I don't know. Also, my screen keeps dimming, and I can't tell if I'm showing the knitting to the camera unless I keep the screen from dimming, so I have to keep touching my phone, which I find kind of obnoxious, but it is what it is. All right, so last thing that I have started is the next Library of Socks pair of socks. And what I have done is I have knit the cuffs. I say cuffs because I've knit both of them already. So the pattern I'm using is the Smog socks, and what I wanted to do is that pattern is a single color of yarn, and that's great because of the way the texture flows throughout the sock, and I'm going to do that, with the exception of I felt kind of bad that the only thing that has a color reference basically is the dragon, because I picked Explorer Knits and Fibers Butterfly Effect colorway to represent Smog. It's got all these like fiery red oranges. It's got this like purple, which is representative for me of like the jewels in his hoard and like his jewel crusted belly. And there's like gold and yellow in here. So this was a really good dragon color to represent Smog. But then if the whole sock is knit out of this, then no one else from the whole story gets a mention, which is kind of sad. So I had this me type of idea where I was like, well, all of the dwarves have different colored hoods, and they're specifically like referenced what color hoods they have. And so I was like, well, I can put a stripe of each of the 13 colors in the cuff of the sock, and then we get all of the dwarves. So we have green, red, dark blue, well, I guess the book just calls it blue, purple, brown, there's a gray, a white, 2 yellow, then there's a pale green, and Thorin Oakenshield wears a sky blue hood. Several of the dwarves come in pairs, so there's 2 rows of those colors, but every other color has 1 row. And that gives me more than enough cuff, a little bit taller than the pattern calls for, but I don't care. I did do a tubular cast on and the setup rows, and I did 1 row of ribbing in the main color of the sock, so that I wouldn't have a weirdly wide band of any of the 1 colors. And also I think that'll look nice like sandwiching all of the dwarves' hoods. Okay, so that's a lot of yarn to carry around. So basically what I did was I knit both cuffs. I have this one on a stitch keeper. Sorry, all the tails are sticking out from the dwarf hoods. I need to weave in all of the ends, which is going to be its own little miniature project. So I knit both cuffs, and they both have live stitches, and they're ready for me to knit the rest of the sock. So these two mean that I don't have to carry all 11 sock colors with me. I just have to carry the main color. But if I knit an entire sock on vacation and I need to start the second one, I am not prevented from doing so. So we're gonna take the sock on vacation, socks, and probably the Will-O-Wisp. It's too much to hope for that I will get either of my camisoles done pre-vacation, as it is happening this, very soon. And I don't want to take the blanket because that's like a lot to drag around, even though we're not constrained by luggage. But yeah, trying to keep it a little bit simple, but still give me things to work on. So that is the plan. That's all the project-y things. We should talk acquisitions, but I forgot to go get them, so we'll have to go get them. Okay, this month I do not have nearly as many yarn things that have arrived to show you all. So, but also I wanted to quickly touch on, last month I showed some Madeline Tosh for a doppio that I have planned to knit. And I did not realize at the time, neither at the time that I ordered the yarn nor at the time that I recorded my last update, that Madeline Tosh has been acquired by a private equity group. So I'm sorry about that. I will not be purchasing yarn from them anymore. I have this yarn. It's going to get used, but I won't like advertise their yarn, or the fact that I'm using it in my garment. We'll talk about the other yarns that are going in it that are indie dyed, small business things, because that's what I'm interested in supporting. I'm not interested in supporting private equity groups. So unfortunately, Madeline Tosh, Jimmy Beans, which was a really convenient place to pick up some needles. But we are not here for convenience. We are here to hopefully push towards the world being a better, less exploitative place. So, with that being said, I have a couple of things to show you. So my next installment of Plies and Hellhounds Wheel of the Year came in, and this is the Ostara. Wow, I suddenly started doubting myself in the midst of pronouncing that word and tripped over it. Colorway. And again, I'm getting this on the Selkie base because it's the fingering option that Gabby is offering for this collection. So that makes this merino and silk. And it's a beautiful like gray, green with blue and little shots of other colors in it. So that's very exciting. And then my husband had to travel again for work. And this time he ended up going to San Antonio, Texas for a couple of weeks. And while he was there, he went to Yarnivore and picked me up a skein of Bad Frog in the color Poseidon's Wrath, which I love the name of. And it's this beautiful like stormy blue with pops of like neon green basically. and it looks great. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this yet because it's surprise yarn, so obviously wasn't in a plan, but I'm very excited about it. And he got me some other goodies. So I have a pin from Yarnivore with their business card. And then he got me the Highland Cow stitch markers that are on my filigree cami right now. And also a skein of Moody Teal Blue yarn by Brie Larson Art. So that's very exciting. So he did a very good job. Okay, one other thing I want to talk to you about. It seems far too early, as it is May, and this is really like the April yarn update, but I understand why these things are so early. My brain feels like it's too early to start talking about advents. However, the amount of work that an advent takes for a dyer to produce means that it is time to start thinking about advents. I really like yarn advents. I started seriously getting them a few years ago. Probably 2024 was my biggest year. Last year I pulled back a tiny bit, sort of. And this year I'm going not pulled back, not all the way mad, I think. I have projects picked out for all of them already. So this yarn will get used. Like, it's on the knitting schedule. Actually, all of my projects that I want to do with 2026 advents are slated for the 2027 knitting calendars. So really, they're not going to sit around that long, which usually it takes me about 2 years. I open an advent in December and then kind of plan what I'm going to do with it over the next year. Sometimes I have an idea. And then the second year is for like knitting it. But this time I already know what I want to do with all of these. So it's really hard because not everybody releases their advents at the same time. So you're not comparing everything against each other, and some of them sell out, or like the window to pre-order it will close. So once an advent is in the wild, you kind of have to decide if that's one that you're doing or not. And there's some other, like, sometimes dyers will do extras and you can pick it up later, or like whatnot. But that's kind of a stressful thing for me to like play that game. So it means that you sort of have to pick without knowing what all will be available, or miss out on things. And this year I was looking for advents that are less of a fade. I think all of my advents last year were fades. And the problem with a fade is, like, my brain knows what to anticipate after I've opened the first color. So it's not as much of a surprise, and it just, the feeling isn't the same for me. The enjoyment isn't the same for me. So I really wanted something that was not that predictable when I was opening it. And I also feel like I have a lot of fades right now to knit with, and I am not someone who exclusively wants to knit things that are fades. So, in fact, you'll see me mixing my fade colors up so they don't fade as much in certain projects. So this year I was really looking for things that weren't fades. And I tend
to be really drawn to or gravitate towards the like moodier colors, the like jewel tones, the like gothic Victorian kind of aesthetic. But I also like bright things and I like happy things. um, so it's a bit hard to like narrow down on color. And if I'm getting multiple ones, I don't want them to all be the same tonal inspiration. So this year, I am going with actually all dyers that I have never gotten an advent from them before. The first one that we purchased, and I say we because my husband bought it for me, I was sort of like, should I get this one? It's like another advent on top of the two that I know for sure I'm getting at this point. And he was like, I just got it for you. Because he knows that they bring me joy, and he had the ability to do that at that moment, so that is what he chose to do. So the first one I got is Murray Woolgood's Christmas at the Castle. And it's the only one that's really like has any Christmas inspiration, so that's kind of nice and sets it apart. And it will be a mix of different dyeing styles and is not considered a fade. And then I had to get the Gothic Library Advent that the Frosted Stitch and Fantasy Fiber Yarn Co. are doing. And that is a solstice countdown, which I'm very excited. I've never gotten one of Marissa's boxes, but I always admire how like well curated the pieces of them are and how thoughtful they are, and how I feel like she focuses really well on like small business, like local to the box makers to do the other pieces. And I love an advent with extras. Like that's part of the fun, is the little like thematic things that go in that then are in your collection, and even when you finish knitting with the yarn, using that stitch marker will remind me of it or whatnot. So I jumped on that one immediately and I'm very excited about it. That is a like yak yarn as well, so we'll have that nice like moody edge, and it's all inspired by Gothic libraries. And then Giddy Yarns is doing Around the World in 80 Days, and I don't know if anyone has picked this up, but that is the namesake of my dog. And I was like, I don't know how you can fight that, right? It is going to be a semi-fade, but the other thing that I really was drawn to is that it is using kind of like biomes of the world, and so like taking you around the world environments in yarn. And that's the inspiration, and then the colorways will be named in a way that is tied to the book, but the colorway inspiration is like from the nature that you would travel through, or the environs that you would travel through if you were to circuit the world like Phileas Fogg in the book. And so that one's a very different, like based on the mood boards, color palette, brighter, more rainbow-esque almost than the two previous ones I've mentioned. And that one will be another like 24 minis. And I did get the add-on sock set because the pattern I'm eyeing, I think I will need one color that has more yardage than a mini. And then I'm hoping that'll work really well. And I'm on the fence, but I've been eyeing Artemis Yarns Advent Inspiration. That doesn't come out until the end of June, basically, so I have time to decide and figure out if I'm going to pick up a fourth one. But and then we will watch all the other ones that get released slightly later in the year. and determine if we've made the right decisions. But I have very strong reasoning behind all of them this year. I have patterns picked out already for all of them. So I already know what I'm going to knit with all of these. I've already put them on the knitting schedule. So it feels like you just have to get the yarn then, right? That's the way that goes. Anyway, that is all the yarn things. And also I feel like my voice is getting a bit scratchy because it's the most talking I think I've done since my reaction. So I'm going to go continue drinking fluids and taking care of my sad little lungs and knitting. And we'll check in again in what at this point is a few weeks. Okay, so it's day 5 of seed starting. We have a nasturtium back here. We have the first of the red Russian kale has come up. The lacinato has already come up. We have basil and garlic chives. And then we have most of the squash have appeared, and the borage. So that's exciting. And then down here we have the first of the leeks and onions. And then we have sunflowers. We have 6 of the 8 tomatoes and 2 of the cucumbers. So yeah, good start. Happy Earth Day and welcome to the squirrel truss. Okay, so we have 5 raised beds. This back one is beans in the back corner, radishes in the front, corn, nasturtiums back there, squash, daikon radishes here, squash, more, there it is, more corn, and hopefully a nasturtium. More beans in that corner, radishes, squash. We're missing cilantro. Okay. I'm gonna go around past the air conditioning unit. That's my borage, which hopefully survives. Marigolds. Okay, this bed has more squash, more corn, the onions, the leeks, and more radishes. So similar layout, just leeks and onions instead of all the radishes. Dill. This bed has sunflowers, carrots, tomatoes, basils, and nasturtiums, and hopefully a zinnia, but it hasn't come up, so we'll see about that. Peppermint. We're missing a parsley plant. That's a weed in there. Then this is peas, sage, cucumbers, carrots, fava beans, zinnia, a lot more carrots, more cucumbers, peas, chives, rosemary. This is the last bed. This is kale, nasturtiums, sunflowers, eggplant, beets, and lots of basil. And another marigold. That's the lemon balm in that corner. And then we have a black licorice plant, which makes me very happy.
So that is the Squirrel Dress Vegetable Victory Garden.